Peace to the tribes. Peace to the tribes. Shalom. Shalom, shalom. We just allowing everybody to charge up right now. Go ahead and charge up. Hey, to the tribe, to the flow. Most high over everything that is your Abba, your Amma. I hope everyone's able to build accordingly, you know. I felt like the last drop was pretty good. It was pretty good. Felt real good to be amongst the tribe. So we back at another one. And I just hope you're doing well. We got a real positive flow right about now. We're gonna go ahead and get into some things as usual. We just allowing everybody to charge up. Go ahead and charge up. Ahab to the real ones. Hawa, hawa. While we building though, while we charging up, I would like to say, or rather ask, you know, what's one thing you wish to manifest while you surf the wave? While you surfing the wave, what do you want to manifest? What is the intention? You know, I have a passion. For me, I have a passion. And, you know, I just love to dig on the origin of words. Among, you know, many other things. But this topic in general just tends to put me in the right vibration, the right frequency. It's a marvelous frequency. As we go ahead and dive into it, it's really amazing because the spiritual aspect to these builds, into a specific build like this, gets, you know, taken out of context. And we're gonna go ahead and, you know, show why. It's just, you know, things get taken out of context when you remove the spiritual element from the Wata being the source, the pure water flow. Some call it information, some call it knowledge. We like to say information, knowledge, plus the wisdom. That is your wise dome. That's a pure water flow, right? When you're talking orientation, frequency, and vibration. You know, that's how you remain fixed and immovable. You stand firm. I wouldn't want to keep it any other way. With that being said, though, yeah, you know, a lot of the spiritual aspect tends to get, you know, taken out of context. And with that said, when you remove the spiritual aspect from the Wata, things could get pretty intense. You know, you lose a lot of the backbone, a lot of the meat, so to speak, from the ingredients, you know. And, you know, I get it. But the cons of this side of the land We're spiritual in that sense for a reason. All right? And you can't disregard the spirituality, because there's levels to it. You know, and without realizing that book was written about you, well, it's kind of hard to identify the so-called fight that you're fighting. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Peace to the real ones. Because see, projection refers to unconsciously taking unwanted emotion or traits you don't like about yourself and attributing them to someone else. And you know, being in the society that we are in as of today, we have been put under a lot of projection. A lot of things are being projected onto us all the time. It's at an alarming rate. Some would say it is the American way. But when you surfing the wave, well, projection isn't something you necessarily want, because that's the program that has you believing psychologically you're color to a crayon box, right? Why you're a misnomer, why you're now a myth. You know, they give you these fictionalized names to a fictionalized corporation. But when you remove the context, the spiritual context, well, how can one be summoned to court? See, this is spiritual warfare, and this practice at an all-time high, right? Because given the switcheroo, and this is what we're going to get into by projection, right? There's been a switching of identity, a projection of identity onto a people, onto peoples, onto tribes of peoples, right? From a spiritual standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, you know? So how can one be summoned if we're not building on the spiritual side to that attack at the same time? You know, this switcheroo that has taken place, this switching of identity, is spiritual within itself. How would they be able to switch your spiritual beliefs? How can the people be so programmed without such an implementation in that aspect, in that very region, in that very topic? See, they had to poison the Wata to slip that program in, right? So we're going to see, you know, as just to how big this projection gets. You know, keep in mind, the attack came way before it actually hit you. You know, there are a lot of Christian ideologies that affect you, and there are a lot of people who would think they're not Christian from a standpoint of a spiritual religious sense, and I would understand, I would get that. But at the very same time, constructed society has us in a Christian era. So just by simply adhering to the year 2024. Well, that in itself makes you a participant of this Christianity, because you are acknowledging, at least within the simple fact that it's been 2024 years since, well, who's died, right? Which is a projection. So we're just, following along with the construct of the world that we see and live in. And with that being said, things will, definitely get interesting as they do right here on this channel. So, aha to the real ones, most high over everything. That is all aha to the framer and shaper. Your Aman, your Abba. Let's go. So here we have MK Ultra. And we're just going to identify the basics, alright? Because this topic within itself can definitely dive deep. But since we're on the matter of projection, well, MK Ultra was a project that was an illegal human experimentation program designed and undertaken by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and intended to develop procedures and identify drugs that can be used during interrogations to weaken people and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. Alright. Through brainwashing and psychological torture. Now, they'll have it at date that this started in so-called 1953 and it ended around, so-called 1964. But I'll go ahead and let you know as an illegal human experimentation, just the overall war that America has been at, whether it comes to a slave trade and how they teach it, or a slave trade the way we see it, just the overall status of such in a so-called free world, the war that has been maintained on racial category, categorizations. It gets really interesting to figure out, okay, this type of brainwashing and psychological torture goes way beyond 1953. All right, and considering the fact that how this came into actual origin is by some mighty interesting people. Ones might be able to say like, hey, I thought those type of people were stopped, right, at the end of the last World War. Yet a lot of these methods somehow subliminally made it here. But then one can just argue those same methods were actually derived from here. Shalom to everybody surfing the wave. We're going to carry on to the next one. This term tends to bring up a lot of different thoughts and feelings, just because of the society that we live in. Now, I was having a conversation with my cousin. We're going back and forth over text, And he basically sent me some information suggesting that a lot of the, famous, more infamous, I would say, more infamous caught, captured serial killers have been, aided along by the CIA in, some form or fashion. Which, yeah, for sure, some of the things that he showed me kind of allowed me to agree. So going with that, there are a lot of elements that go into that type of training, right? And a lot of things that the mindset of Christianity will project onto that or onto society is this image or energy or entity of Satan, right? Satan. And I'm digging on this because it doesn't necessarily exist in the Old Testament, at least not in the form or fashion that it is in Christianity, right? So that's already let you know off the gate that, this Christianity seems to be in the frequency or in the vibration of something foreign of its origin. Which would, go to a lot of different things as well as we see in today's society. A lot of the original ways of a lot, right, aren't necessarily in the same fashion that is being copied today. It's just different frequency and vibration that has been watered down or just broken away from. It's been a disconnect. But if we're just talking about adversary, one who plots against another, some supreme evil spirit, in itself as an energy or force, within this, it really doesn't exist, right? And I'm saying that because when we're talking about satanic rituals, right, a lot of these, not alleged, but these convicted serial killers basically went into admitting or just basically being a part of was satanic ritual abuse. So when we're talking about these types of activities, when we're talking about, satanic rituals, what's really being said, right? What's really going on? And it just made me like, whoa, okay, what energy can we really attribute to what's being said? Maybe Christianity cloaks it. Altogether, though, as we're talking about this word Satan, as we're building on, the meaning of it, the etymology of it, it has been injected or projected into society as a type of spiritual energy. So as we continue on with this spiritual talk, we see that devil was a word that was related to it. Devil being a subordinate evil spirit that afflicts humans. The devil, right? Capital. A powerful spirit of evil, otherwise known as Satan. Okay, so we're talking about a spirit once again. And now, as we get into the breakdown, there's some Jewish connotation and some Christian connotation with some Latin, late Latin. All right. Earlier, we went straight to the Hebrew. There was no Jewish mentioning. Very interesting, just highlighting. Because again, they would go in to show a contrast between so-called Jew, so-called Hebrew. But it's, so-called still, we're talking about spirituality. It's another term for meaning accuser or slanderer. Again, Okay, we see Satan attached to throw across through, to slander, to throw. All right, here we have demon, which we're not going to go ahead and dig into, but we see that demon is attached. We have another meaning from the 1200s under false god, heathen god, a sense of a diabolical person resembling a devil or demon in character, a clever rogue. So now we're starting to get a bit more of a context, right? A spirit or a god. They said the Algonquin word manito. Algonquin, all right, word name manito. So we're talking about a spiritual energy, an accuser of a sort. Although we did get the little bit that we got down here, it still wasn't giving me anything to really draw from outside of religious thought, right? Christianity, Islamic, whatever, the typical indoctrination. If we think outside of that, it's not giving me much. Demon did give me something to go forward from there, but like I said, we're not going to go in that direction because we're still talking about satanic rituals. One of the words that came across in these type of acts these serial killers were known for engaging in was cannibalism. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm digging on the word, like, this is crazy because we're still talking what? Projection. What is projection again? Let's get it back, right? Projection is unconsciously taking unwanted emotions or traits you don't like about yourself and attributing them to someone else. All right. So here we have that cannibal is a human that eats human flesh. At least in the term that we see it, right? Cannibalism can also be attributed to animals, as we'll go ahead and continue to get. But if this is a satanic ritual, again, we have now kind of left Christianity in the sense of a cannibal, because now we're talking about something that doesn't really have a religious connotation to it. You can apply it, but yeah, we're talking about an actual act, right? So it was interesting to see that cannibal had an etymology of savage, which again is interesting. And it's from the word Cannibal, from Christopher Columbus' rendition of the Caribs, named for themselves. All right. Transliterations as Kalino or Corina, the Caribs. So these Caribs, as we'll dig, right? Well, let's just get it. They were the natives believed by the Europeans to be the anthropophagites, right? And I guess that's the man-eating flesh type, right? Columbus, seeking evidence that he was in Asia, thought the name meant the natives were subjects of the Great Khan. The form was reinforced by later writers who connected it to the Latin canis, or dog. So kicking off with this drop, I mean, it's actually been some years since the last time we did this. The last one I did was years ago. But now you're starting to see why I've done the Canaanite series in the way that I've been able to do it, because yeah, you can slander the book for what it is, but there's a Canaanite religion, so to speak, that is practiced in your face all across the spectrum, and it has a lot to deal with these dogs. But that's only if you surfing the wave, which is why we only talk to a selected few. But see how we're building on this cannibal. I can see the canis connection, which is the dog. So I can see the dog within the word. And right about now, you should start to activate that quartz vision surfing this channel, because it's becoming evident now, right? We're still talking projection of consciously taking unwanted emotions or traits you don't like about yourself and attributing them to someone else. So they said the Caribs called themselves this, but the Caribs in this actual situation would be you, right? We're talking the indigenous, the originals, the aboriginals, the autochtons, the primordials, the primitive, that being the prime, the first, the Adamas, those out the ground. We talking the Zet Tepi, that is the first timers, the land of the first sun, the Khans. Alright, so why would they be referring to you as such, especially with this act? Especially with this act. You know? Carry on, it says to compare Cannibal. Alright, so the etymology of the Carib is the Caribbean, a native people of Central America and northern South America, and formerly of the Caribbean. Now that's a whole lot of people. Alright, because this encompasses that waterway connection. We talking the pure water flow. Right? We talking about how the freeway connects us. Well, you know, that Wata was connecting us as a peak, right? As a body. So as we see, yeah, we talking a vast amount of tribes, which is why we say peace to the tribe and then peace to the tribes. Now, it's a trip how they're accrediting the Arawakking language to this as the West Indies. And we'll get into these later. But ultimately, it meant the brave ones, the brave ones, right? We're just talking Carib, or strong men. Now that's a hell of a name coming from Christopher Columbus. Alright, because this is how Christopher Columbus saw you. As a brave one, as a strong man. As one of the original people of Central and Northern South America. Also the Caribbean islands. Alright, this is how your projection was onto him. Alright. So seeing how you were brave, you were strong, well, he called you a cannibal, right? And said that the name Carib meant cannibal. And this Caliban term, Caliban, is a degraded bestial man. A degraded and bestial man, which is sheesh, the complete opposite of that. So we see this cannibal is a projection, an unconsciously taking unwanted emotions or traits you don't like about yourself and attributing them to someone else. Well, you might say, Nat, what do you mean? Well, when you surfing the wave, you know that Christopher Columbus, or Saint Christopher for that matter, was a Canaanite who is a dog head. So it's interesting that the dog head would then call you a cannibal, which is a relation to Canis or Cani or canine, again dog, as the name to Carib, when Carib really means the brave and strong ones. You were not a degraded bestial being. Alright, that is not the image that he saw you in. Alright? He said that we were savages, right? Now you take savage and you get what? Animals. Ferocious, right? And one might say, well, you're not going to mess around with no wild animal. You're not going to go over there and mess with them. I got you. But when we're talking about savage, untamed, undomesticated, and wild, we are in a spiritual frequency right about now. Wild, uncultivated, wild, savage, untamed, strange, pagan, wild, woodland, literally of the woods. Forest, grove, sea, sylvan, indomitable, valiant, fierce, bold, cruel. Persons of or behavior, so we're talking about behavior. Wild, barbarous, uncivilized, reckless, ungovernable. Would you like to live around people who were wild, barbarous, and uncivilized? Would you want to be around people who were bold and cruel and were fierce in that cruelty, who were reckless? I don't think you want to be around such untamed people. I don't think you would want these people as your neighbors. But then at the same time, most of us grow up like that today. Right? So you don't have to worry about being tamed, because in today's times, there's no one to tame you. There's nothing to tame. Everything is wild, undomesticated, and barbarous. Everything is reckless and uncivilized. Everything is degenerate. To be naked or clothed in foliage. Alright? Savage. A wild person. A wild person. Alright, human being from an uncivilized region or a tribe or race of the lowest development. Unfeeling, brutal, or a cruel person, whether civilized or not. Alright. Savage. To tear with teeth. To maul. Tear with teeth. To maul. Originally of animals. A bull. To gore with the horns. Keep that in mind. To gore with the horns. From savage. So in cannibalism, that is to gore with the teeth, right? Or to, what did it say? To tear with the teeth, to maul. So that's a cannibalistic act. And again, we're talking about satanic rituals, which have religious connotations. The etymology of a Satan or devil wasn't explaining why cannibalism would be seen as a satanic act. Alright. When we're talking about cannibalism being attributed onto the Carib, because we're talking about your spiritual war. Spiritual war. So I'm digging well, what is a Satan? Like, what is a Satan? Seeing how savage is attached. So I'm continuing to build. And we get to ritual, right? Because they said cannibalism is a form of a satanic ritual pertaining to or consisting of a rite or rites relating to religious rites, religious observation or observance or ceremony, custom, usage, the manner of a rite, as in ritual murder. So ritual murder, in a sense, is linked to, well, the way that I took that was like, serial killing. You have to do it ritualistically if it continues to happen. I mean, when you think of wars in themselves, right? These are rituals of a spiritual manner. Just to be in war in itself is a ritual prescribed for the manner of performing religious worship, as a book containing the rites or ordinances of a church, the external forms of religious or other devotional exercises. All right, so we're talking ritual. Cool. Rite was attached to this ritual. Rite being a formal act or procedure of religious observance performed according to an established manner, a custom or usage, especially a religious observance or ceremony. All right, to reason or count on the notion to count, to observe carefully. A rite of passage. So we're talking about something religious. So this satanic ritual is leading to something religious. Right? Where did we get? When you think of people who practice rituals, those who observe in religious ceremonies, and we're talking about these as, they actually are, right? With books, right? When we're talking about rites, here we have lecture. A lecture is a written works, right? Literature. Learning from books. A reading. To read. Originally, to gather, to collect, pick out, choose. Alright? To gather, to collect. Meaning to speak, to pick out words. Etymologically, to pick out words. The reading aloud, action, reading aloud. Either in divine worship or to students. Alright? So, here we have these words that have to basically deal with each other. Right being connected to lecture, lecture being connected to ritual. Alright? Because these are acts that you find in the book. If cannibalism is a satanic ritual, well, this is something that you find in the book. Right? And why would that be important? Well, this was being attributed onto people who wasn't reading. Right? These people weren't reading anything from a book. Yet, they were projected as cannibals. When we get projection, and I want to really stop saying unconsciously, because it's not even unconsciously, right? It's also consciously taking unwanted emotions or traits you don't like about yourself and attributing them to someone else. Alright, so this is all within the spiritual warfare. Because, when we think about those that partake in rituals, well, let's see what we get, right? So see, when they talk about rituals and and the gathering around and reading out loud. When they're talking about, oh, these things are, taking place, these satanic rituals. This is what a lot of it looks like. Alright. And we're going to see as to just what degree. They always seem to look like this in these movies, in these rituals, in these things that take place. And keep in mind the type of people that are up under these garments. Their type of character, what they do outside their ritualistic activities. And then keep in mind the things that they do during these ritualistic activities that are listed as something satanic. Again, we're just talking projection. But all of this has an origin. And this origin is what we're building on, because this is spiritual warfare. And they did cast this upon you. Alright, specifically we're talking about the Caribs though. So peace to the real ones. We're going to go ahead and continue on with this peaceful, wonderful build. Ahab. Cause see, they said you were a savage. A savage being a wild person. A wild person. Again, we're talking about the Carib, who they want to say the word cannibal comes from. They say this word comes from Carib because this is what they called you when they saw you. But we're talking dog language. And we know Saint Christopher was a dog head. So we're still talking a projection. So the fact they refer to you as the savage, the wild person. Well, to be a savage is a projection, and it's not just in the sense of where we're saying, hey, it's a misnomer. No. It's really been a switcheroo. Because they think that they're you. And you think that you're them. Untamed, undomesticated. You're wild and free. You do what you want. Do art thou wilt. Mother Goddess energy. All of this is a spiritual invocation within this spiritual warfare. Because when you really dig on a wild person, if a person is wild, he might be unrestrained, crazy, or even enthusiastic. Like a wild animal, or an imagination that isn't held back by rules. People who don't like rules. Oh, people who don't like order. But everything is in order. You're either in order or you're out of order. So you rather be out of order. You rather be out of the function that operates naturally. Oh, okay. So you want to be wild, untamed. Right. But when we dig on who that is, well, things get a little interesting. Let me get a glimpse of this wild man. Alright. A savage. To tear with the teeth. Maul. Originally of animals. A bull. To gore with the horns. Wild person. Remember we were talking so-called canines, right? Teeth. We're talking animals. Wild man. Alright. And we've dug on this topic several times. 1795, Wild Men of the Woods, Orangutan. Alright. So again, we're still talking projection. A projection. They called the Carib a savage, taking unwanted emotions or traits that you don't like about yourself and attributing them to someone else. They called you a savage. Alright, a savage. They say you were a savage and a cannibal as the Carib. I'm just talking the native people. Alright. But when we dig on this wild man that you want to be, I mean, this is a theme. This is a spiritual thing. Alright, this is part 7. It's been a while since I've done this. It's been years, man. Right. Wild man. And I'm not the one to make it up. This is a thing. ancient wild man. You're now surfing the wave. Alright. So see, this is definitely spiritual warfare taking place. This is definitely a projection, which is a part of the psychological abuse. It's part of the psychological abuse to project onto a people by way of brainwashing. Brainwashing. It's intense. So there's a history that's being projected and pushed and forced onto you at will. And you're just unfazed. Alright? You just shrug it off. Oh, it's nothing. Because we so woke. You know. But this stuff goes back deep. It goes back far. It gets realer than real. And what do I mean? Eating people was wrong, but it was also widespread and sacred. Alright, let's get back. I mean, just right away. Alright. Now keep in mind, they're gonna say this was happening throughout Asia, but I mean, are we looking at Asians right now? I don't know. It says this 15th century depiction of cannibalistic practices was inspired by Marco Polo's writings about traveling through Asia. Alright, so it says cannibalism is not uncommon. Humans have long enshrined the consumption of human flesh in sacred ritual. Not just a few times, but again and again in almost every corner of the globe. Evidence for cannibalistic practices have been found in South America on many Pacific islands among some ancient Native American tribes and in many other regions of the world. Now, I like how we're looking at a bunch of European looking Asians, and the first spots they name are those that would be or could be labeled as the Caribs. Right? So this is how we know they're feeding a projection. This is the switcheroo. Alright, this is a form of brainwashing and programming, which they happen to use for brainwashing as a spiritual attack. It says, nor is cannibalism a distant historical fact. In the 1980s, Médecins Sans Frontières, the international medical charity, documented ritualized cannibal feasts. Among soldiers in Liberia. Since then, the ritual has become more common. By the early 2000s, sacred cannibalism was a common practice in this near anarchic country where violence, rape, and drug abuse are widespread. Cannibalism has been documented in the Congo and Sierra Leone and Uganda, where it was infamously practiced among the child soldiers of Joseph Kony's army. In such war-torn areas, participants in ritual cannibalism are often happy to make their motivations clear. They draw spiritual, look, here we go already, right? They draw spiritual and physical power from the consumption of human flesh. The practice serves as an obvious propagandistic value as well, striking fear into the hearts of enemies. And in child armies, cannibalism is an initiation ritual and ordeal that transforms a boy into a man and makes him feel sanctified, empowered, and safe under the hails of bullets. Alright, cannibalism has no single ubiquitous meaning. Rather, it is adapted to suit the spiritual framework of each culture in which it's practiced. For ancient Egyptian pharaohs, it guaranteed an eternal life. For Druids, it might have been connected with agriculture and fertility. For others, cannibalism has served as a tool of empowerment and intimidation, and as a way to honor the beloved dead. But most of all, cannibalism deals in taboo. Now, spirituality comes in many forms and shapes, for sure. But when you see yourself in the form of what you would consider to be satanic, you have to really look at the perspective and the energy we're coming from, right? Because now they're saying this is a spiritual thing, which is intense because they're inflicting this spiritual war upon you by just the label of the name. Mind you, this is a projection of something that they practice in. We like to say, to the ancestors this and to the ancestors that. Some say praises to the ancestors and, all these different things. And it's okay, it's fine. I'm not here to bash your flow. But keep in mind, such things are taken as necromancy, and that would, in a sense, make you a necromancer. right? A certain reverence or this, appreciation or love for the dead in that sense. So, where do you think that will fall under as far as spirituality goes? How would you feel about someone spiritually partaking or practicing necromancy around you? Would that be something you want around your children? If we're talking spiritual energy? I don't think so, right? But I know we're just off the chain right now, right? We're just untamed. We're wild. We're free. We see what this is getting us. So cannibalism, literally man-eating, as most modern anthropologists prefer to term it, man-eating. It was practiced long before, here we go. It was practiced long before anatomically modern Homo sapiens. Wait a minute. If it was practiced long before anatomically modern Homo sapiens, then this is basically saying the original peoples didn't partake in this, right? You didn't get the original people originally practicing this. Because now we're talking about how it was practiced before. Even though this is when they also slip in their hijack. I mean, they have to. Which is why this is part 7. Right? Because you know the definition of these cave people. And you also know there's nothing ancient about them. Not older than you. And if you are the indigenous Carib, well then you are the anatomically modern ancient human. And there is none more ancient than you. In the cave dwellings of Homo antecessor, the common ancestor of modern humans and Neanderthals, anthropologists have discovered defleshed human bones dating back 600,000 years. The earliest Homo sapien bones found in Ethiopia also show signs of defleshing by other humans. So here they want to say an ancestor, right? Which is what we were just talking about. Crazy. Okay? So here they say the ancestor of modern man and Neanderthal. But why is modern man first and not Neanderthal? To me, it would seem that Neanderthal should be here and then modern human after, since they say Neanderthal came before modern human. But here they show a distinction. Modern human being first because it's distinct from Neanderthal. Well, why is it distinct, Natural? Well, that is because they have traced that there are modern humans that walk the earth today that possess little, if any, to no percentage of Neanderthal. And if they do, you have Neanderthal people or people who have Neanderthal in them still today, and they're anatomically mixed with modern human. So you do have people walking around with a fusion. All right. So this Neanderthal and its ancestor were known for their man-eating due to some findings in the cave. All right. In a cave. Cannibalistic rituals. Endo-cannibalism can be seen in various cultures which consume their dead elders in order to maintain and pass on their wisdom. Exo-cannibalism is typically represented by indigenous American Iroquois tribes, which were said by colonial missionaries to eat their defeated enemies to absorb their powers. Okay, so you see the spiritual warfare, right? Because the missionaries are the ones attributing these acts of cannibalism on to the natural people. All right, to the natural people. Human cannibalism is the act or practice of humans eating the flesh or internal organs of other human beings. A person who practices cannibalism is called a cannibal. Remember, this has been happening since the beginning of time, they're telling you, right? And before so-called man was even walking the earth. Yet the origin of this name comes from the Carib, which I'm finding quite insane because this is spiritual warfare. See, this is the reason why we surf the wave, because we connect all this truth to a pure water flow that gives us proper orientation and standing. You know, it's like Captain Planet. If you remember Captain Planet, it took how many colors to get and how many of them had to have the ring to get Captain Planet to manifest? Well, this is like your key ingredients or your key elements to how you surf the wave. You have to have all of these elements combined to be the one. Alright, we surfing the wave right now. Quartz vision on high, charge up. It says the meaning of cannibalism has been extended into zoology to describe animals consuming parts of individuals of the same species as food. I mean, that's what you eat food for, right? Nourishment. And in a sense, it does give you power. All right. Now it says Neanderthals are believed to have practiced cannibalism and may have been eaten by anatomically modern humans. Now, this is intense, right? Because here we have them being in existence at the same time. So this can't be an offshoot. Modern humans can't come from Neanderthal, because a modern human still exists with the Neanderthals still there. Furthermore, they're able to know the difference between the two, so much so that it's known that Neanderthals practice cannibalism, but now they're attributing this cannibalism to have taken place by modern humans. So here comes the hijack, right? Because it say cannibalism was occasionally practiced in Egypt during ancient and Roman times. It's crazy, the two distinctions. Roman times is their ancient, as well as later during severe famines. Says the island Caribs of the Lesser Antilles, whose name is the origin of the word cannibal, acquired a long-standing reputation as eaters of human flesh, reconfirmed when their legends were recorded in the 17th century. Some controversy exists over the accuracy of these legends and the prevalence of actual cannibalism in the culture. They're like, wait, what? Right? Because, I mean, they'll tell you, like, there low key hasn't been any evidence found. Right? The Caribs. They'll say, like, hey, there hasn't really been any evidence proving that these Caribs practice, or these indigenous Americans practice in cannibalism. There's no evidence. So what we're looking at is a projection. It's another version of whitewashing, if you will, because it's a switching of cultures. All right. The origin of cannibalism. Neanderthals are believed to have practiced, all right, cannibalism. We got that, right? Digging on the facts, man. So when we go on to Neanderthal, as we have gotten in previous drops, it comes from the Neander Valley, the name of a gorge. Right, the place named is from the great size form of Joachim Newman, literally new man. So Neanderthal is the new man. He is the new man. All right, a new man. So this is something that has been a habit that was formed by these wild people, these wild persons, these dwellers of the cave. See, they'll tell you that they interbred with modern humans. And they'll say that DNA analysis settled that question in 2013, that they did. But they didn't interbreed. They were genetically modified. Just like how you're being genetically modified right now to want to be wild, the want to be untamed. To be free to do what you want. to do as you will, to do art thou wilt, which is a satanic ritual. Do art thou wilt is a satanic ritual. This whole switching of identities is a satanic ritual. This is a spiritual war. Gorge, from throat, a narrow passage. Gullet, throat, jaws. Gulf, whirlpool. I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? I mean, look at it. Food, devouring. Food devouring. Now we're talking about cannibal, right? Humans that eat human flesh. We were digging on Neanderthal. How Neanderthals are believed to have practiced cannibalism as a new kind of man. As a new kind of man. And their name comes from a valley, Neander Valley, which is a gorge. Gorge being food that gets devoured. Throat, gulf, whirlpool, gullet. Devour of beasts or persons. To eat up entirely, eat ravenously, consume as food. Devour, swallow up, engulf. Swallow down, accept eagerly. To swallow, food devouring of persons or inanimate agents. Consume destructively or wastefully. Devour. Devour is attached to where they come from, which is a gorge. All of this is tied into the name of Neanderthal. Alright? I told you we were talking about a projection. Taking unwanted emotions or traits you don't like about yourself and attributing them to someone else. That's what we're talking about right now. Ravenous. Obsessed with plundering. Extremely greedy. Rapacious. Violent. Of water swift flowing. To seize, pillage, to sweep down, cascade. Violent rush, robbery. Active robbery, plundering. Voracious, ferociously hungry. To be ravenous, right? To be in the act of plundering. Your land has been plundered. pillaged, seized, swept in ways of violence, with extreme greed. Enmity. Now, I find this trippy because this puts us back into that book, right? Where supposedly Satan was the reason for this enmity, right? But enmity is hostile feeling, rivalry, malice, internal conflict, hostility, enemy. So, when you're looking at the enmity between man and a woman, now you see that sort of so-called spell, right? Because now it's a spell. You see it for what it is. If you break out the religious construct, how can you identify the Satan within the enmity? Well, amity is the opposite. So they said enemy results from enmity. And when we look at enemy, we get one hateful toward and intent on harming someone. This is deep. One hateful toward and intent on harming someone. An enemy, an adversary, a foe, a demon, the devil. Wow. Wow. Okay? Because now you can identify just what the devil really is or what it really means. And it just means the enemy. But an internal enemy. Alright? And an internal enemy. So this enmity being an internal conflict, a rivalry of hostile feeling, it's an aversion, right? A hostile act. This being placed between man and woman, thus creating a sense of an enemy feeling. Also, when you're dealing upon this energy with someone else. Alright? So when we're looking at it from a spiritual aspect, they see it as someone who is not a friend, right? See Amy, which is the opposite. We'll get into that. But see right here says as an adversary of God, unbeliever, heathen, anti-Christian. Anti-Christian. That sounds familiar. Right? Anti-Christian. These are sets of beliefs that they attack you on spiritually as the devil. Member of an armed, hostile body in a war or feud of the opposing military forces as a whole. Personal enemy. Enemy in war. We are talking about misery. Alright, an outlaw. Wolf. Okay, wolf. We cannot make this up. Wolf. Alright? Enemy. Enemy. So that's really what the devil is. Right? And there are many demons that can be attached onto a person. Keep that in mind. So when you see this for what it is, it starts to open up, right? Because as we dig on the next one, which is Amy. Now this is where the drop gets quartz vision on you. Because we dealing with Amy. It says the proper name from Old French, Amy. Amy, literally beloved. Past participle of amer, to love. Now this is starting to get a little jumpy, right? Because we're talking amer, amar, as in that amar, America. Here it goes, right? Amar, amer, amar, amer, to love, to be in love with, find pleasure in. Ama, as in ama or amarika or amaraka or America, America, ama, as in your mama. Take hold of, right? Take hold of. Ama. So here we have amer, ama, amord, amor, ama, amor, amer, amor. It's all aha, love, ami, amy, ama, amai, amai, amir, ama, take hold of, as in to keep close to the bosom, within arms, cherished, covered, protected, within darkness, black. Amir, to love. All right, so we got the breakdown of love. That is the root to America. Amir, love, is the land of the beloved, or the beloved land, right? The lovely, rich land, the land of rich love, aha. You know, because when you take it to the script and they tell you the image, right, that man was created in the image of us, was not necessarily the image as it is the idea. Man was created in the idea. See, when you say image, you allow one to become a carbon copy. But you can't carbon copy an idea. You can just, well, you can only steal it if it's not shared with you. But when we're talking about the idea, or the idea is where this enmity exists, right? It is the idea. This devil, this Satan exists in the idea. Which is the archetype. The concept of a thing in the mind of God. An archetype is the concept of a thing in the mind of God. Form, the look of a thing, a kind, sort, nature, mode, fashion, in logic, a class, a kind, a sort, species, to see. See, you were created in the idea of Hua, which is a mental image. The act of thinking, as in the sense, a concept of something to be done, concept of what ought to be, differing from what is observed. A fixed idea. You were an idea. You were made in the idea of Hua. The idea. Because when you dig on the archetype, as the idea, you start to see that you are the model, the first form, the original pattern from which copies are made. You are the marvel, my naga. You are the archetype. You are the archetype, the original pattern from which copies are made, as the Carib. The Carib being the native peoples of Central America and Northern South America. We're talking about the brave ones, the strong men, the archetype. You were of the beginning, the origin, the first place, the first one, to be first. And who is it that the original or the first form or the original pattern which copies are made? Who do we go to war with on this spiritual level? Well, we understand that our copies, our carbon copies, are at war with us. But we are at war with the Archon. The Archons. The Archons. Well, they believe they have dominion over us. And it is the Archon who've developed this Neanderthal to come and eat you and switch you and to program you and project onto you. That is their unwanted traits and emotions that they don't like about themselves and attribute them onto someone else. This is a projection onto the indigenous. We're gonna see why. See, here we have a native family of Saint Vincent. Alright. I'm talking about Caribs, man. The ones they said were cannibals. See, we know they have to project onto the natural ones. We know they have to project onto the natural ones. It's a part of their brainwash, their programming. Cause see, you know, they're not trying to be the wild men that they come from. It reminds them of their animalistic ways. So they look onto you with the projections of their own inner thoughts, right? And now you can see just that enmity and the reason behind it. That vibration of a so-called enemy. You know, we definitely know it was ones that looked like us that brought them. That came with them, for sure. But as we see in this picture being from Mexico, this picture being of the Caribs, well, as we can see, right, it's almost the same. Damn near the same, the way they're carrying this and vice versa, the stick and all. Showing cultural familiarities. Again, showing how the skin tone of these folk can't just be attributed to paint of ritual and war. And we saw how Central America was connected to the northern South America. That whole region was locked down. We're talking tribe on tribe on tribe. We talking tribe on tribe on tribe. See, we just talking about the cons. Mary comes. Ahab to the bro. Kuimeo. We just talking about Mary. Mary, or Amy. Alright? The cons. You know, they found you looking the same way. All the way to the ice wall. They found you looking the exact same way, my nigga. It's intense. It's no wonder they had to hit you with a spiritual war. They put you in spiritual warfare by way of projection. And they prey on your capability and ability to just love and spread that vibration. Because they all want to be healed. But we can only heal with those that are healing. And you can only heal with those who want to be healed. And we still need to heal ourselves right about now. We just talking about the cons. Ahab to the real ones. So we're gonna go ahead and get ready to ride out. Peace to the real ones. Let's see what we got. Shalom. Alright, so I just wanna send everybody to try to come check this video out. It definitely highlights what we're talking about. And you know, it's just a natural expression of how these guys are, you know, jumping off of the track that they are failed to express. No doubt, but if you surfing the wave, you know exactly what time it is and exactly what we mean. All right. And again, we're just talking projection. You know, we're just talking projection, and we're seeing the switcheroo for what it is. All right. You see the name of the track, Troglodyte. All right. And we know what that's in reference to already, because we know that Troglodyte is talking about cave dweller. And we've seen how in the caves, you know, these Neanderthals was doing what they do, right? Eating folk. So see, we have them talking about what it means just to be a troglodyte. And we have in our scripts that, you know, the troglodytes intermix with these Canaanites. And we know ultimately it's the Canaanites that went ahead and introduced them. You know, this is how we know it's a spiritual warfare. Because we've been at war with these tribes for some time. And we're basically getting to the crux of that right about now in this fifth wave as we pop off. You know? So I just thought that would be interesting for the tribe to go ahead and check out. We're gonna go ahead and continue. Peace, peace.
Welcome back to the Origin of Words. Today we're journeying underground to explore the origins of a fascinating word, troglodyte. Have you ever wondered where this peculiar term comes from and what it originally meant? Well, you're in for a treat. Let's embark on a linguistic journey and uncover the hidden history of the word troglodyte.
What do we say? We love building and digging on the origin of words. That's how we got here in the first place. That's what got us here, and we're gonna continue to carry on with such. And it's gonna continue to take us further. Who knows? But I was able to grasp a clearer picture just by doing the origin of words. Not necessarily reading books, but reading words and their meaning and origin. Hawa Hawa.
To begin, let's break down the word itself. Troglodyte is a term that might conjure up images of ancient civilizations or primitive creatures. The word troglodyte has its roots in ancient Greece and the words troglodyte or troglodyte. These Greek words are derived from the combination of two Greek words, trogl, meaning hole or cave, and dine, meaning to go in or to enter. So, quite literally, troglodyte translates to dweller in cave or one who enters holes. But there's more to the story. In Harper's Dictionary of Classical Antiquities, 1898, Harry Thurston Peck noted that ancient Greek geographers, such as Strabo and Diodorus Siculus, applied the word troglodyte to describe various peoples who lived in caves along the western coast of the Red Sea. These people were often considered uncivilized or barbaric by the standards of the ancient Greek world. Greek philosophers Pliny the Elder and Plutarch described these cave-dwelling peoples in mythical and often fantastical terms. In reality, the troglodyte peoples were quite sophisticated and had adopted farming practices, tamed horses, and had a distinct oral language. Plutarch further noted that Cleopatra, queen of the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt from 51 to 30 BC, spoke the language of the troglodytes, which is believed to have been origin of the current-day Ethiopian language. In the following centuries, noted biologist Carl Linnaeus developed a comprehensive system for naming organisms and became known as the father of modern taxonomy. He believed that the troglodyte people had unique characteristics that warranted the creation of a distinct genus called Homo troglodyte. In the mid-18th century, Linnaeus asked the Swedish East India Company to search for the troglodyte people, but they did not find any signs of their existence.
That's because, they weren't looking at themselves, right? They're trying to look at these people in the sense of that Neanderthal gene pool without realizing they themselves were the living remnants of these troglodytes. It's so crazy because they're literally looking for themselves, but can't see it at the specific time, I guess. Yeah, that's what these drops are for. So you can go ahead and dodge the hijack at all costs. We shall continue.
Over time, the Homo troglodyte taxonomy fell out of favor and was discontinued. Nevertheless, the use of the word troglodyte to describe peoples with different behaviors and appearances persisted into the 19th century. In The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Robert Louis Stevenson writes about an investigation into the mysterious connection between the respected Dr. Jekyll and the malevolent Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll's experiments with a transformative potion lead to the emergence of his dark alter ego, Hyde, revealing the moral and psychological struggles inherent in the human condition. In one encounter, Mr. Hyde is described as pale and dwarfish. He gave an impression of deformity without any nameable malformation. He had a displeasing smile. He had borne himself to the lawyer with a sort of murderous mixture of timidity and boldness, and he spoke with a husky, whispering, and somewhat broken voice. Upon seeing Mr. Hyde, an investigator handling the case exclaims, "God bless me, the man seems hardly human. Something troglodytic, shall we say?" The use of the word troglodyte and its variations became associated with technology and societal advance in the late 19th century. In The Underground Man, French sociologist and criminologist Gabriel Tarde wrote a visionary text about societal changes and the trajectory of human civilization. He envisions a utopian future where technological advancements and cultural integration lead to a more harmonious global society. However, at numerous points through his text, If expresses concerns about neo-troglodytism and the possible return to primitive or regressive social conditions. In the chapter entitled The Struggle, Tard refers to a character who speaks about the pinnacle of civilization that began with caves and was destined to return to these subterranean retreats.
That's deep. The acme of civilization, he said, began with caves and was destined to return to these subterranean retreats, but at a far deeper level. What would make him say such a thing? What would make him say such a thing? Peep the symbology. Alright, never forget it. But let's peep it.
Turn to primitive or regressive social conditions. In the chapter entitled The Struggle, Tard refers to a character who speaks about the pinnacle of civilization that began with caves and was destined to return to these subterranean retreats, but at a far deeper level. The transition to using troglodyte to describe socially or technologically backward individuals became more prominent in the 19th and 20th centuries. In its modern usage, the word troglodyte has become synonymous with the words Neanderthal and Luddite. Troglodyte is often used playfully to describe individuals became more prominent in the 19th and 20th centuries. In its modern usage, the word troglodyte has become synonymous with the words Neanderthal and Luddite. Troglodyte is often became more prominent in the 19th and 20th centuries. In its modern usage, the word troglodyte has become synonymous with the words Neanderthal and Luddite. Troglodyte is often used playfully to describe individuals who are resistant to or unfamiliar with modern technologies, social changes, or progressive ideas. In the 1960s, a British band called the Troglodytes shortened their name to the Trogs before releasing the hit song Wild Thing. Wild Thing is considered one of the 5.
You wanna be wild. Right? Untamed. Off the chain. I get it, man. I get it. But peep it. It's somebody else's culture, man. It's somebody else's culture. I mean, we talking light work on the subject. This is part 7. Wild Thing. You see it. The Trogs. As in the troglodytes. I'm not making this up, bruh. Alright? Sheesh.
Often used playfully to describe individuals who are resistant to or unfamiliar with modern technologies, social changes, or progressive ideas. In the 1960s, a British band called the Troglodytes shortened their name to the Trogs before releasing the hit song Wild Thing. Wild Thing is considered one of the 500 greatest songs of all time by Rolling Stone magazine and was an influence on garage rock and punk rock. While the literal meaning of word troglodyte is still rooted in its ancient origins, it has become a way to express frustration or amusement at perceived backwardness or reluctance to adapt. Thank you for joining us on this linguistic journey. If you found this video interesting, give it a thumbs up and share it with your fellow language enthusiasts. Thanks for watching.
We sure will. We sure will. Hey, out to the tribe. We're gonna go on to the next one. Peace. Alright, so we just gonna say if we get cut off at this point, then you should already know this version will definitely be up on Patreon. There will be a post in the community section. Well, I will go ahead and let you know in advance to expect it on Patreon. And yeah, we would definitely carry on from there. If it does make it and you happen to see this in one sitting and no one's tripping, peace to that. A to the creator for making it happen. We just talking the same thing. So we're gonna go ahead and see what this author's putting out on this presentation and how it lines up with what we already put out. Peace.
Frankly, Strictly speaking, S. Craig Zahler's directorial debut isn't a full-blooded horror flick, but then again, it is effectively unsettling than most ones. It's a movie that doesn't hold back, so yes, it's unquestionably not for the squeamish. Hell, it'll even put the entire Saw film franchise to shame. Zahler, as the mastermind behind Bone Tomahawk, has reintroduced the Western genre to the audience, blending it exceedingly well with just the right amount of nail-biting horror elements. And it's only fair to say that his oeuvre is bound to keep one on the edge of their seat. We think it's time to appreciate this film as a cult classic, and believe us when we say that this underrated gem here certainly deserves a much larger audience. Well, this brings us to the main contents of today's video, where we'll not just explore the movie, but also delve deeper into the flick's high points, the cannibalistic troglodyte clan. Oh, we are super stoked about this video, so let's get started. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, let's begin. Bones, Tomahawks, and a tribe of troglodytes. The movie explored. We are in the
Bones, Tomahawks, and a tribe of troglodytes. Interesting. Alright. And like I said, the cannibals attached to it. If we still talking Neanderthal, we still talking cannibals, we still talking caveman, then of course, we're gonna see what the drop is.
19th century, the opening scene has two brigands, Buddy and Purvis, busy doing what they're best at. When Purvis gets alerted by the sound of an approaching horse, the duo decides to hide in the hills, and on their way, Purvis gets spooked upon hearing a musical gust that he calls ominous. Buddy, on the other hand, dismisses him and tells him that it isn't time for womanly imaginings. Soon, they arrive at a place that looks like a Native American burial site, and Buddy tells Purvis that he will be going straight through the burial ground and deeper into the hills. Purvis hesitates, but Buddy is adamant about going ahead. With the duo hearing another musical gust followed by a heavy thumping noise, Buddy takes out a gun and fires twice. This has him attacked by an unseen assailant who savagely kills him. And as for a horrified Purvis, he manages to flee from there. 11 days after Buddy's death, Purvis is finally seen arriving in the town of Bright Hope, where we are introduced to foreman Arthur O'Dwyer and his wife Samantha. Arthur has recently had a bit of an accident, injuring his leg in the process, and add to this a minimum of 12 weeks rest. Judging him by his looks, he's clearly unhappy about it. Coming back to Purvis, he is observed burying his stuff by the town's elderly backup deputy, Chicory, who is out on a night ramble. The suspicious activity of Purvis makes Chicory report him to Sheriff Franklin Hunt, and the latter decides to pay him a visit. Purvis deliberately hides his identity from Hunt and tells him his name is Buddy. Post a shower of questions, Purvis attempts to escape, only to have Hunt shoot him in his leg. The sheriff is next seen sending John Bruder, a witness to the shooting, to go and get the town's doctor. Bruder is unable to fetch the drunken doctor, and instead has Samantha, who also happens to be the doctor's daughter and assistant, brought to the sheriff's office post filling her in with the details of the shootout, and to have her mainly extract the bullet out of Purvis. Before Hunt calls it a night, leaving Samantha with a shackled Purvis and one of his deputies, Nick, to help her with whatever she needs for the surgery and drop her back home. She tells the sheriff to let her husband know not to wait up for her. Later that very night, Buford, the stable boy, gets brutally murdered. And while we don't get a proper look at the attackers, it becomes pretty clear from the modus operandi that he's killed by the same ones who had slaughtered Buddy at the beginning of the movie. After the news of the murder is reported to the sheriff, Hunt arrives at the scene and begins investigating the murder. He is shocked to find the mutilated corpse of the stable boy, even surprised to find none of the horses there, and more to discover the jail empty. Upon noticing an arrow left behind, he asks Chicory to fetch him the Native American professor and make him take a look at the arrow. Hunt is next seen informing Arthur of his wife's abduction, and the latter is seen limping his way to the saloon along with Hunt to learn more about the kidnapping. It doesn't take the Native American much time to link the arrow with the tribe, and in his words, there's only one group that hunts these. They don't have a name, they are a tribe that doesn't have a language. He calls them cave dwellers, and upon being asked about their dwelling place,
He calls them cave dwellers. So you see, they're seeping out, a version or an aspect of their actual beginning, their history, as as a screencasting or a screenplay, right? Notice how he's going to say they're not of my people. And they play this game with each other. They're not my people. But in a genetic sense, yeah, there is some correlation between the different groups, the different types of cave dwellers. That is. All right. So we're gonna get it just a little bit.
Calls them cave dwellers, and upon being asked about their dwelling place, he tells them that he has a general idea, but refuses to take Hunt to them as he doesn't have the slightest intention of getting killed. Of course, this astonishes the rest of the people, and they ask him why he's afraid of his own kind. To which the professor tells them that they aren't his kind, further disclosing to them that troglodytes are a spoiled bloodline of inbred cannibals who rape and eat their own mothers.
Of inbred. All right, keep this in mind. Inbred, this genetic recessiveness is a trait of inbreeding, incest. All right, it's a real topic.
They usually look like Indians, despite the fact that they are something else entirely. The professor asks for a map of the Western Range and shows the group the forbidden territory of the mountain range. And somewhere in the northwestern part of it is where the troglodytes reside, a place that he addresses as the Valley of the Starving Men, with Hunt geared up with Arthur to rescue the abducted.
The Valley of the Starving Man. Now we got Neanderthal, right? And that breakdown was the Neander Valley. The Neander Valley was a gorge, and gorge meant to devour food. So the Valley of the Hungry Man is right on point because we're talking cannibalism, right? Satanic ritual. It's crazy.
Abducted Samantha and his deputy Nick. Chicory and the gunslinging brooder also insist on going along with the duo. The quartet begins their journey towards the hostile territory, taking as much precautions as possible. In the middle of their journey, Hunt takes away a bottle of opium tincture from Arthur to stop him from overusing it. Eventually, with days and nights into their ride, the group encounters two Mexican strangers finding their way to their camp, and even with the duo introducing and unarming themselves in the process. Brooder shoots them thinking that they are scouts from raiding parties or thieves. While this gets both Hunt and Brooder into an argument, the group ends up setting up a cold camp somewhere else. The same night, the group is ambushed by raiders who take away all their horses and leave Brooder's horse in a very bad shape. Brooder is left with no choice but to put her down. Post an entire day of incessant walking, a sly innuendo from Brooder regarding Samantha has Arthur hitting him in a fit of rage. This leads Arthur losing his balance in the process and aggravating his wounded leg further. Chicory examines Arthur, sets his leg, and leaves him there, giving him some time to recover. The rest of the group carry on with the journey, leaving behind stones and marking a path for Arthur to follow later, and also promising to find and keep Samantha safe. Upon reaching closer to the valley, the trio hears the same musical gust that Purvis and Buddy had heard earlier. Brooder recalls the sound, stating that he's pretty sure of hearing it back in Bright Hope on the night of the kidnapping. The trio concludes that they have been spotted and decides to arm themselves. As they venture deeper towards the valley, Chicory asks Brooder how many Indians he's killed so far, to which he says not enough. Brooder discloses to the duo that some of the Indians are women who are well versed in using a bow and spear, with Chicory further pressing Brooder about his hatreds towards them. He learns about the death of Brooder's mother and sister, who died at their hands. No wonder it made a considerable impression on Brooder when he was just 10 years old. At the valley, the men are attacked by the troglodytes with an unsuspecting cascade of stones and arrows. While the trio is able to kill 2 of the attackers, Brooder gets fatally injured in the process. He insists on sacrificing himself rather than living his life as a disabled person. Fair to say he's able to kill one of them before being killed himself. As for Hunt and Chicory, they eventually get captured by the troglodytes and are taken as prisoners inside their cave, where they get reunited with Samantha, who was also seen locked up in a makeshift cage-like structure. Samantha tells them Nick isn't doing too well and that the troglodytes have even eaten Purvis. We finally get a good look at Wolf Skull, the leader of the tribal cannibals. His appearance is similar to the others. He has gray skin, he is seen wearing white-colored armrests, and to add to this, a very short underwear.
Notice the tusk in his mouth too, or the type of teeth, right? I mean, it looks like the images we were seeing from the wild persons. The Google images of wild persons is spot on, right? But we're still talking uh cannibals, Neanderthals, wild men, wild people. All right. Um, all of these things tying in to a switcheroo or a projection by way of spiritual attack. And all of these things are part of satanic rituals.
What differentiates him from the rest is his wolf skull that's placed over his head. Coming back to
Can't make this up. A wolf skull that is attached over his head. I mean, at this point, these drops are starting to merge so finally. I don't really know the difference other than what I'm calling them, right? But this is low key the merging into the Canaanite series as the Nephilim, right? The Neanderthal, the new man. This is taking us there. Today we're talking about the projection onto the Caribs, right? As far as the programming go, but this is what we dealing on. The opposite of untamed or of tamed is what? Untamed, right? To be wild. This is what we're looking at, and this is what you're really saying without proper spiritual context.
get a good look at Wolf Skull, the leader of the tribal cannibals. His appearance is similar to the others. He has gray skin, he is seen wearing white-colored armrests, and to add to this, a very short underwear. What differentiates him from the rest is his wolf skull that's placed over his head. Coming back to the storyline, he makes this haunting scream, which basically means that it's mealtime. He has two other members drag Nick out of the cage and strip him completely. Hunt tries to get out of the cage to rescue Nick, but that leads him to getting two of his fingers partially chopped off by the cannibals. Before Nick meets his gruesome death, he discloses to the sheriff that Purvis was a drifter that killed a lot of people, butchered them in their sleep, robbed them, and desecrated the burial grounds of the cannibals. What follows next is a dreadful sight. Nick is brutally scalped, cleaved crotch first, and then ripped in half while being alive. His mutilated remains are next devoured by the cannibals right before the remaining group. Samantha is seen asking Hunt about her husband, and while she's relieved to hear that Arthur is alive, she's furious to learn that Hunt has left a trail for him to follow, with Hunt and Chicory telling her that they have already killed 3 of them. Samantha tells them that there are at least 12 males and 2 pregnant females who are blind cripples. Hunt, upon realizing that he still has some tincture of opium that he had earlier taken away from Arthur, concocts a plan asking Chicory for his whiskey flask. The plan is pretty simple, to lure the troglodytes into drinking it and poisoning them in turn. Coming back to Arthur, he regains consciousness and starts following the trail that Hunt had left behind for him. In due course, he reaches the valley and successfully kills 2 of the tribal cannibals. With Arthur inspecting their bodies, he discovers an object that he initially thinks is a piece of jewelry embedded in their windpipes.
I mean, look, what is bro doing digging in their windpipes, man? Like, for real. Like, and this is what I mean. They have these same genes within them. They would make it look as if these are 2 different type of people, but in actuality, they sort of the same. This is why they implemented the idea, right? Because the idea is a horror movie. It's a scene out of a horror movie. The idea, but this genetically is embedded in them. This is what they come from. This is where they come from. You know, so you see, so in his fingers, the fact that he went digging in his being's throat. I mean, you got to be in a certain mindset to go digging into someone's throat, especially while they're not alive. Like, yeah.
An object that he initially thinks is a piece of jewelry embedded in their windpipes. He cuts it out using a knife and keeps it inside his pockets, only to realize later that the object resembles a whistle. When he blows on it, the sound draws in another cannibal near him, who...
So he indeed puts the piece of windpipe that was in the throat of the person that he got rid of. He takes the piece out and blows on it with the flesh and everything still attached. This is what I mean, man. I in the sense of survival, right? He has to do it to survive. No, It's inherent. This is something psychologically they have no problem with because it's of them.
windpipes. He cuts it out using a knife and keeps it inside his pockets, only to realize later that the object resembles a whistle. When he blows on it, the sound draws in another cannibal near him, who he is able to kill effortlessly. Back inside the cave, Hunt is successful in making at least 3 of the cannibals drink the opium tincture. However, with one of the cannibals consuming a deadly dose and another one getting knocked out, Wolfskull realizes that his men have been poisoned. He takes Hunt out of his cage, tears his shirt to cut open his abdomen, and shoves inside the heated whiskey flask. Hunt tries to take it out but is unable to do so as Wolfskull is seen placing his foot on Hunt to hold him down. Wolfskull is able to shoot at Hunt's arm but is unable to reload Hunt's rifle. Call it beginner's luck that Wolfskull is accidentally able to reload the gun and shoot Hunt into the stomach. However, Hunt is not the one to surrender, and he's seen grabbing a bone tomahawk lying near him and chopping off Wolfskull's feet partially. We finally see Arthur arriving there, but Hunt decides to take care of Wolfskull all by himself. He gets himself up and decapitates Wolfskull by striking him with the bone tomahawk a couple of times. Arthur quickly frees Samantha and Chicory. As for a fatally injured Hunt, he tells them that he will stay behind and finish off the males, as they already know their way to Bright Hope. While he tells Arthur to go out the same way he came in and not to dawdle, he tells Chicory to say goodbye to his wife for him. With the trio making their way out of the caves, they find the 2 pregnant troglodyte females, who not only have stakes driven into their eyes to blind them, but also have their limbs amputated. Arthur suggests to keep it moving. The trio is already far away from the cave when Arthur blows the whistle, and the faint sound of 3 gunshots is heard later. While it's not shown directly, it implies that Hunt has killed the remaining males. The movie ends with Arthur, Samantha, and Chicory as the 3 survivors on their way back home. What exactly were the cannibals in Bone Tomahawk? Are they real? Do you remember the time when Zoller had said that he wanted the majority of his movie's mysticism to remain both ambiguous and debatable at the same time? Well, guess he wasn't kidding after all. The point of this movie undoubtedly happens to be the troglodytes, but those who have seen this film will agree with us when we tell you that Zoller, throughout the flick, never really did focus the camera on the troglodytes. We always saw them from a calculated distance, and we think the sole reason for doing such a thing is that the filmmaker obviously wanted to keep their culture more mysterious. Naturally, this paved for a multitude of
Keep their culture more mysterious. It's very interesting that they would put it like that because we're uncovering that mystery right now. And furthermore, as we build on that, we're more starting to connect the dots back to them. I mean, they say this is the age of Aquarius, and it's not for no reason.
theories around them, and we'll be citing the most interesting ones out of them. Some believe that the tribe depicted in the movie are the real ancestors of the post-apocalyptic cannibals of The Hills Have Eyes, and similar.
Now, see, they would say that this was an actual, result of the genetic process. And you got some folks out here saying that, it was the Anunnaki that went ahead and created this, and through the books of Enoch, you can tell that these Anunnaki were of white skin. And this is, some of the theories that I've ran into as of recent that kind of inspired for me to make this because, hey, I mean, nah, it can't be so, Jack, right? This is the result of such an experimentation, this pigmentation, this reversal of genetics. It's a regression. The recessiveness in it is a regression. It's a devolved form of man. It's a step backward. It's a back cross. It's backward. All right. But it has been known and widely accepted that these types of people from the hills that have eyes and the sorts are a part of this genetic mutation, this group of troglodytes, this experiment gone wrong. Peace.
the sole reason for doing such a thing is that the filmmaker obviously wanted to keep their culture more mysterious. Naturally, this paved for a multitude of theories around them, and we'll be citing the most interesting ones out of them. Some believe that the tribe depicted in the movie are the real ancestors of the post-apocalyptic cannibals of The Hills Have Eyes and similar backwoods cannibals flicks. Now that somebody has said this, you know we can't dismiss it so easily. One of the primary setups horror producers absolutely love is having a cluster of cannibals dwelling somewhere in the civilized but unexplored. No, we can't dismiss it so easily. One of the primary setups horror producers absolutely love is having a cluster of cannibals dwelling somewhere in the civilized but unexplored world. Primary setups horror producers absolutely love is having a cluster of cannibals dwelling somewhere in the civilized but unexplored world, and not have anyone notice them until things go downhill. Like it or not, it is similar in the case of Bone Tomahawk, a movie that's set in the 19th century in the American Southwest. The cannibals on display are noted to be so savage that they have been shunned and avoided by other native tribes. The movie has them addressed as cave dwellers dwelling in the Valley of Starving Men, and judging by the name, it surely looks like they may have arisen from a period of famine, one that led the clan resort no other way but cannibalism in order to survive. Now comes the part where the learned Native American gets repulsed even by the idea of being associated by them. He is seen strictly denying that they are not of his kind and that they are nothing but a group of inbred cannibals who rape and eat their own mothers. This actually throws light on the clan's bestial culture, the habit of continuing their bloodline by raping their wives and not even sparing their own mothers. Of course, this grisly act has not been directly featured in the movie, but the ending scene did exhibit two pregnant women, blinded and with their limbs amputated, proving things indirectly. When you look at the clan's choice of weapons, it's bound to give you early Stone Age vibes. The clan's not huge either, and the only advantage that these cannibals have is their superior stealth, which is clearly...
See, she said it'll give you Stone Age vibes. That definitely connects us back to the time of the so-called Neanderthals, to just go and show that they know exactly the origin in their painting and the history they're grabbing from, and the projection onto such peoples as in the indigenous or the true natives of the land, by calling them in particular the same level of savages that are applied to these troglodyte folk. Remember, they called the Caribs cannibals, man. Even though genetically they are you know what I'm saying? They have the history of being a cannibal. And this is the spiritual warfare I'm talking about, that you're placed under, whether you know it or not. And if you're not paying attention, well, yeah, it catches you slipping, for sure.
When you look at the clan's choice of weapons, it's bound to give you early Stone Age vibes. The clan's not huge either, and the only advantage that these cannibals have is their superior stealth, which is clearly evident in the movie. Marvelous verdict. What say we appreciate the greatness of the movie and let the antagonist on display remain a mystery? Well, that's it for today, and we've finally come to the end of our video here. So what did you think of Bone Tomahawk? What is it that you fancy the most?
And that's pretty much it. Shabbat. I hope everyone had a wonderful time on this Ether Bus with us today. That pretty much wraps it up. This has been part 7 of another marvelous installation to this series. Hey, to the creator, that is Aman Habar, framer and shaper. In the breath of the great spirit, we say Hawa, Hawa, Shalom.